Far out, man. Far out. Uh,
Hey, everybody out there. Welcome back to another Friday episode of the Audiophiles. We are going to be covering a suggestion put to us by one of y'all out there, in particular, a fellow named Neil Smithy, who's offered us up a track by the Screaming Trees. This track that John is going to go off and listen to, because I am very familiar with this, is called Halo of Ashes. And it probably comes as no surprise that the suggestion was posited on our Screaming Trees Nearly Lost You video. So I thought it'd been enough time. The waters have calmed for us to revisit that band. So Neil, thank you for offering this up, and I think now is as good a time as any for John to go off and give this thing a listen so we can come back and discuss it. I'm sure Neil is interested. Other Screaming Tree fans out there are interested. I'm interested. So, John, are you prepared, sir?
yeah. I've got my survival pack. I've got my compass. I've got my multifunctioning penknife, including the bit that taking stones out of horses' hooves. I'm ready.
Yeah. You're gonna need that last one, I'm sure. Go off and give it a listen and to come back and let us know what you think, buddy.
Will do.
She wears a halo of ashes, the specter on the wind. Waits on me so patiently, I no longer can pretend. The sky rises 1,000 miles below, stars shine and the moon is clear. But nothing happened, no one won't see me appear. I've been around time.
Okay, great start. It's already got that. It's an interesting sound, different from what I heard before. It's vaguely, I think I may have heard this song before, but it's like really, really vaguely familiar. I see from the thing Dust, and I have listened to this album, but it didn't like stick in my head. I remember enjoying it, but I don't remember the individual songs. So yeah, it's already got this sort of West Coast psychedelic touch to it, which is nice. And then this sort of mysticism as well with that sort of Eastern sound. I don't know if that's a sitar coming through or an effect on the guitar. So it kind of makes me think of that sort of late 60s, maybe early 70s West Coast psychedelia rock. And there's a bit of like, because of the sitar sound, a bit of like Bunny M coming through as well. His voice sounds great. It really does. Yeah, it immediately sort of draws you in. I'm not getting much lyrics, but I'm just enjoying the sound of his voice, which is cool. Yeah, this is a really good start. See how it goes.
One foot in the grave, glorified in the dying of the sun.
Oh yeah, that's really 60s.
My angel pulls me closer, is my poison she crawls through. Walks with me so silently and no longer can refuse. Tomorrow.
Sorry to stop it, but just there, that bit. So you had, I think it was in this channel here, that little guitar going, these sort of little guitar comments. And there was it a synth line that's sort of giving these sweeping motions behind it. Again, it feels quite airy as well, though. I'm wondering, because the title, Halo of Ashes, isn't particularly positive, but this sounds um, quite uplifting in a way, quite upbeat, I think. It just sounds great, and there's lovely little touches in there.
1,000 miles behind, stars shine in the moon below. Wake me where you find me. Pretend you don't know the long time away. We won't put in the grave. Glorified in the dying of the sun.
Sitar, definitely.
She wears a halo of ashes, specter on the wind. Waits on me so patiently, I no longer can pretend. Tomorrow, 1,000 miles behind, face fading in the moon below. Wake me when you find me, pretend you don't know. Been a long, long time away, with 1 foot in the grave. Glorified in the dying of the sun. Been a long, long time away, with 1 foot in the grave. Glorified in the dying of the sun.
Finish there. Yeah, I really enjoyed that actually. Had like little nods and elements. I wouldn't say it's taken from anything, but yeah, I kind of feel a bit of the Doors in there, um, without the keyboards. Almost a bit of Zeppelin as well. Dare I say it? Definitely a bit of Bunnyman. But the drums had tremendous energy as well and really sort of drove it. That instrumental break, um, was sort of went to the drums, and then the sitar was really interesting as well. It wasn't like a blues scale sort of solo. It was just really intricate and interesting. Just sort of opening up little facets here and there. I really liked it. And then he comes back in sweeping and singing, and it does have this air of say the word again, mysticism, but there is this sort of hiddenness to it. I'm wondering on the title Halo of Ashes with this something to do with like Angel of Death. Could it be a woman he knows? Knowing him in that period, it's probably something to do with drugs as well. That kind of dominated his life, bless him. Um, but yeah, overall, this is a great song. A real sort of blast as well compared to other stuff I heard from them. Just comes in and sort of grabs you. Yeah, really enjoyed this. Yeah. Right, better learn a bit more about this by going back and getting Andy to spill the beans.
All right. So, what do you have to say for yourself in this Halo of Ashes?
Okay, so I did say in the reaction that I have heard this song before,
Oh,
but the only reason I know this is that somewhere in the dim and distant past, I've listened to it, but not enough to remember it.
okay.
It was just that the video thumbnail said Dust, and I know that I have listened to that album. I couldn't, and I thought it was decent, and that's all I know. I couldn't tell you a single track off the album or anything like that, but I do know it happened, and that's about it. So it
Fair.
didn't affect my reaction to this at all. But so starts with these strumming guitars, both electric and acoustic. I have said this many times before, and until someone listens to me, the two of those together is a great sound and should be done more. Um, there's a kind of with a yawn and a crash, the bass and the drums join in. I have to say, the drums, fantastic job all the way through this
Oh
song.
my God. The drums are fucking incredible in the song.
Like the energy, the drive, and the sort of guiding hand was spot on. It was never too much, but really, really good. And this section, there's a pulsating bass drum that starts off, and then your man Mark Lanigan starts singing with the title line, "She wears a halo of ashes." It's one of the few lines I got. I don't really mind. His voice is like such a great quality. We've already said this before, but here it's got this sort of easiness to it. There's a rich patina, like I don't know why I get these weird images in my head, but this one was his voice was like a really heavily stained coffee table with
Mm,
like old spillages and ring marks and stuff like
yeah.
that. All add to the character of this sort of tiredness, but well worn and comfy as well. So yeah, I loved his vocal performance. It wasn't one of those bombastic ones or whatever. It's just really, really nice. But it was kind of laid back as well. Um, and the guitar that joins in as he starts singing initially has this 60s Eastern mystic tone to it, sort of West Coast psychedelic adjacent sitar wannabe, or all that sort of stuff.
Mhm.
Really nice. The keyboards, I think it's the keyboards that kind of rise and swirl, this sort of like strings type thing, but it's sort of moving like smoke from a joss stick. And it's sort of lifting and but also obscuring at the same time. And then the snare drum kicks in as well. So it's really the one thing I got from the first sort of section is there's such a different vibe to this compared to the other Screaming Trees stuff that I've heard that I can remember. Particularly like Nearly Lost You. I mean, it's
Mhm.
really totally different vibe,
Yeah.
and I really enjoyed it. We even get towards the end of this that break at the end of a phrase where it drops, you just get the wailing, the sort of vocal bit, which again is this sort of COD 60s stuff, and it's a lovely touch. Far out, man, far out. Loved it. So we get a really nice drum fill, which goes into the next verse, and then there's a guitar in in the left channel, which is kind of almost like commentating and sort of picking up his really nice. The synthy string section gives it a really airy feel to this as well. And I was thinking, even though the title "Halo of Ashes" on face value isn't the most positive of statements, you know, um, at this point, the song, to me, it feels really uplifting and quite upbeat, actually. It's just, even if you're not listening to I'm not catching the words, but it has a really nice quality to it. And I also have to say at this point, it struck me that the main guitar, the tone of it was so similar to some of the Echo and the Bunnymen stuff, Porcupine era. You listened
Mm.
to one or two of them. I remember you commented on this sort of Eastern quality to
Yeah.
the guitar. Um, so the excellent drummer then goes back into work, ushering in the instrumental break. Now, as much as I really liked sort of the main body of the song, the sort of chorusy bit isn't that much difference, I don't think, to the verse. All sort of blends really nicely.
Yeah.
this instrumental break for me is like the key section of the whole song. And lo, I believe now we do get the sitar proper.
Yes. I was waiting till you wrapped up to go, are you sure it wasn't an actual sitar instead of a wannabe sitar? Because I hear electric sitar in this. So okay,
Yes.
great. Good,
So you
good.
have this effect on the guitar, which is as you say, as I said, like sitar adjacent.
Yes.
You know, and then you have the real thing. Now, this whole section is lovely. And it's also a bastard to try and describe and dissect or whatever. So I'll half-assed attempt at it. But coincidentally, I'd just been listening to some Soft Boys, which has a sitar in it as well. I was kind of doing a similar thing, not the same, but similar thing. So it always sounds to me when someone plays a sitar like it's someone painting and they're layering color and texture with every stroke. It's like the notes are just falling down in these intricate patterns. Really lovely stuff. And it's not your standard, blues scale solo-y type, break. It's just really interesting. And culturally, I think you said in a recent one, it's something that it's not an everyday part of my listening. So I don't have the same understanding as if you put on Delta Blues. I know exactly where it's going to go. This one just becomes more fascinating. And it is almost like Tetris in the way the little phrases fit together and twist it's really interesting. We do get then some dramatic tones and these strings all the time, the drums pounding away underneath. It's really heady stuff, and it has a bit of, as I say, this drama to it, which, dare I say, it's a little bit sort of, Kashmiri type.
Yeah.
But but yeah, really hard to describe and put into words, but I absolutely loved it. I really did. And that was just the absolute kernel of the whole song for me. It was just fantastic. So we go back into the chorus with that high guitar flourishing away, and it kind of, I think it repeats until it finishes at the end. Long story short, I really enjoyed this. I probably enjoyed this more than the other scriptures you gave me. I like the nods. And it wasn't like, oh, this sounds like this, but there's kind of, you just get little nods to other stuff. So this, I could see a bit of the Doors in it, without the sort of Doors keyboard. That vibe, definitely a bit of Zeppelin and definitely a bit of Bunny Man, but other stuff as well. But it's their own thing. It's really, really nice. I have to say again, fantastic drums, great vocals, and that overall mysticism sort of vibe about it. It's almost like you're looking through the narrative of the story through a smoke. You don't quite you're getting shapes and lyrics aside, which I didn't catch. You're getting shapes and feels rather than it's not out in bright sunlight. As to the meaning of the words and the song, no, I didn't catch much of the lyrics, but I was wondering, Halo of Ashes. I was wondering, Angel of Death, perhaps. It could be about some woman. Knowing him, it's probably about drugs, but I got nothing really for you. But
well,
fantastic song. Really enjoyed it.
I'm glad you liked it, and it is a really great song. I will say that lyrically, you've pretty much chosen the two things that I know it's one of them, or I strongly assume it's one of them, but it is either this sort of avatar for death in this feminine form, or this vice of his that's going to bring him down and bring hhis death.
Yeah,
and we all knew that he was he loved his drugs. So probably one or both of those is the meaning. But we'll get into the lyrics in a bit. So yeah, by the way, agreed with everything you said. Song's awesome. Got this great psychedelia feel to it with all those sort of as you said, that I said when talking about Bunnyman, this Eastern quality to it. Really, really good. There's drums it's so you hear a song that's got that excellent of a sitar in that portion that you described, and still at the end of the song the drums are what stand out to you, is a testament to how good those drums were. So yeah, I totally agree with you. Quick recap of the band. They're an American rock band from Ellensburg, Washington. They formed in '84 with vocalist Mark Lanigan, guitarist Gary Lee Conner, bassist Van Conner, and drummer Mark Pickrell. And Pickrell was replaced by Barrett Martin in 1991, and it's Martin who drums on this track. They became known as one of the pioneers of grunge, along with the Melvins, Mudhoney, U-Men, Skin Yard, Soundgarden, Green River, and Malfunction, among others. But there's a little bit more to them, especially as they developed and kind of like changed their sound here and there. Although widely associated with grunge, the band's sound incorporated a lot of hard rock and psychedelia elements to it, as well as some traditional blues elements as well. So not just the same Control C, Control V when it came to writing their songs or their albums. They like to switch it up a bit. All still rooted very much in rock and roll. Oh no, pardon me. As we've discussed, we covered the band a bit further in detail in our last episode dedicated to them and their track Nearly Lost You, which featured on their 1992 album Sweet Oblivion. After an extended hiatus thereafter and various recording sessions, the band's follow-up album was eventually released in 1996, and it was entitled Dust. So this is their 4-year follow-up to what was Sweet Oblivion that featured Nearly Lost You. So 4 years later, you're getting this sound from them. So in contrast with the group's previous recordings, they were more influenced by psychedelic rock and punk rock, and Dust contains music that is equally influenced by folk and blues, while still retaining some harder edge sound. The album peaked at number 134 on the Billboard 200 chart, number 32 on the UK albums chart, and number 39 on the RPM Top 100 albums chart. Dust gained favorable reviews, while the singles Sworn and Broken peaked at number 76 on the aforementioned UK single chart, and All I Know peaked at number 9 on both the modern rock tracks and the mainstream rock tracks charts. However, the album ultimately did not match the sales of its predecessor, Sweet Oblivion. The band toured behind Dust for nearly 2 years after its release, with actually former Caius, I think I'm pronouncing that right, and future Queens of the Stone Age frontman Josh Homme serving as their rhythm guitarist. The album was awarded 4 out of 5 stars by AllMusic, Rolling Stone, The Guardian, Record Collector. Entertainment Weekly graded it an A. Louder Sound gave it a 4.5 out of 5 stars, and NME gave it a 9 out of 10 stars. Kerrang! Magazine actually would select Dust as the best album of 1996 in their year-end review. So, Laz Etheridge of God Lives in the TV, a British e-zine, would write of the album, unceremoniously labeled grunge in the 1990s by critics too quick to categorize everything in a neat little filing cabinets, Screaming Trees' 7th album, Dust, proved all the cynics wrong. Grabbed the thesaurus of those who dared to pigeonhole and ram them abruptly up their rectums. Quite simply, Dust is a real tour de force, with little to do with the now somewhat tired genre, and easily stands up as one of the best records of that decade. What's more is the sound. It still sounds splendid 21 years later. So, according to this person, and I would happen to agree, this album has got staying power. Which is, I mean, God, there's a lot of albums that came out in the 1990s that don't, to be quite honest with you. So it's good to revisit an album and know that it still carries its weight. And as for this track, the same writer, Etheridge, would add Barrett Martin's powerhouse drums on the classy opener, Halo of Ashes, are kind of like a cross between The Queen is Dead and Ocean Rain era Bunnymen. So, not only did they agree on the quality of the drumming, but they also correlated with a band that you directly reference in Echo and the Bunnymen. So, Dave Everly of the aforementioned Louder Sound wrote of this album, originally released in 1996, Dust was supposed to be the one that made them mainstream stars. A big ask, even without the band's stone face and antipathy for the notion of rock stardom. But then the trees never fit in with prevailing trends anyway. Dust was less goateed angst and more classic rock and flannel shirted drag. The backwoods psychedelia of Halo of Ashes and the Dust Bowl gothic of Gospel Plow sounded mighty then, and they've lost none of their potency. And allegedly, Peter Buck even went on to say that this album was far ahead of its time, which is, great accolades coming from a widely respected individual whose music was also seen as ahead of its time when it was coming out, especially during the period that you have introduced me to more intimately here on this channel. After difficulties in recording another album, After Dust, the band announced their official breakup in the year 2000. Their aborted albums from the late 1990s would later be released in 2011 as Last Words, the final recordings, which luckily was released before the passing of a couple of the bandmates, most notably Lanigan, who passed away. So glad that they got that out and put out all their material before he left this earth. Let's get into those lyrics. She wears a halo of ashes, a specter on the wind, waits on me so patiently I no longer can pretend. Sky lies 1,000 miles below, stars shine, and the moon is clear. Nothing for no one, won't see me if you're here. I've been a long, long time away, with one foot in the grave, glorified in the dying of the sun. My angel pulls me closer, as my poison she crawls through, walks with me so silently I no longer can refuse. Tomorrow 1,000 miles behind, stars shine and the moon below. Wake me where you find me, pretend you don't know. I've been a long, long time away, with one foot in the grave, glorified in the dying of the sun. This instrumental break that we're both so fond of. She wears a halo of ashes, a specter on the wind, waits on me so patiently I no longer can pretend. Tomorrow 1,000 miles behind, face painted in the moon below. Wake me where you find me, pretend you don't know. I've been a long, long time away, with one foot in the grave, glorified in the dying of the sun. I've been a long, long time away, with one foot in the grave, glorified in the dying of the sun. So yeah, I think it's probably, now that you kind of think about it even more, it sounds like it's kind of both about drugs and the angel of death who is aware of this vice and knows that his time is nearing. And that would be my best educated guess, as I found no explicit suggestion from the writer himself. But go on, John.
Yeah, just you reading out the lyrics there, which I'm understanding for the first time. It gave me images of I know we've just mentioned this recently, but again, it sounded like something that Gaiman would write in Sandman, thinking of death
Yeah.
and that. But it also has that floaty, ethereal quality, like he's looking down on stuff as well.
Mhm.
Almost otherworldly. It's interesting, which you could be if you're high, literally,
Yeah.
as well as figuratively. Interesting, yeah. So it could be both, as you say, quite easily.
Yeah. And oddly, it didn't hit me until I was reading them, but there's almost this understood resignation to it all that reminds me of the same approach to Farewell Transmission, songs from Ohio or whatever it is, where
Yeah,
like the singer knows that the time is nigh, and it's approaching and it's at his own doing probably. And there is some of that in this, if not veiled a bit more in its mysticism and perhaps a bit less direct. There's still some of this, look, I know what I've done to myself. I know my time's coming. That's going on here as well. And I think there's a minor parallel there between those two tunes. Similar vibe, I guess, or mood. But yeah, man, this is really tastefully done psychedelic too. It's not too ham-fisted. It doesn't sound like a cut and paste job from the late 1960s or anything like that. Even though you can pick up shades of, like you said, the
yeah.
Doors and stuff like
It's not
that, it
that
doesn't
flavor.
sound like a pastiche or a direct lift from them. So yeah, really, really good stuff. And I really, really enjoyed this song. Great suggestion by Neil Smitty. I'm glad you liked it. Maybe it'll give you calls to go back and dig into
Yeah,
Dust a
should
little
do.
bit more. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? And also good on them, because they 4 years after the biggest radio hit, and they're still putting out consistently good music and not just mailing it in. And all while kind of flicking a bird to the industry, you know what I mean? Saying we're going to do it our way and it's still coming out really, really good. So yeah, good stuff. Thank you, John, for giving a listen. Neil, thanks again for offering this up. Guys, if you want to offer up any other suggestions that you might think would be interesting for us to check out on this channel, please drop them in the comments field below. Also, while we have your attention, please like, share, and subscribe if you'd be so inclined. Trying to grow the channel, and we obviously can't do that without you guys. We really, really do appreciate it. And hopefully, John and I will see all y'all in growing numbers on the next installment of the Audiophiles. We'll see you later, guys.